Welcome, Truth Seekers, to the first video in our Animo deck building tutorial series. In this series, our goal is to help Truth Seekers like you understand the basics of building your Animo deck. In this video, my wife Carolyn and I are going to teach you the basics of the resource that fuels activating our Animo, power cards. In this video, we will cover how many power cards you should run in a deck, what kind of power cards you should run in a deck, what cards search your deck for power cards, and is there a way that you can place more than one power card into your power pool during the same turn? So our first question is, how many power cards should I have in my deck? In order to answer that, you need to first know about how many power cards you can use during a game in order to get the minimum number. If you use a Truth Seeker, that Truth Seeker provides one power that you can use to activate your Animo. Then there are 5 spaces for power cards. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so this gives you a minimum number of at least 5 power cards that you should run in your deck. All right, so now, and that's if you run a Truth Seeker. If you don't run a Truth Seeker, you have 6 spaces for power cards. So you'll go ahead and you'll have to run at least a minimum of 6 power cards. However, if you're running like a 50 or 60 card deck, then that's not really a whole lot of power for you to just draw into without cards that search for power cards. So you may want to have 9 or 10 power cards in your deck just so you can draw into them more often throughout the course of the game. Since you need to have other types of cards in your deck, I would have no more than 10 power cards in the deck, depending on how many other cards that search for power cards that you have in your deck. So to answer the question, how many power cards should you run in your deck? The answer is at least 5, but no more than 10. Okay? All right then. Our second question is, what kind of power cards should I run?
So depending on what type of deck you have is going to answer that question for you. I currently run a Hope and Love Fellowship deck. And so in my Hope and Love Fellowship deck, obviously I'm only running these cards unless there's a card that, let's say, goes out and does something for free, potentially, or something like True Blue, if I'm going to be using that. So I don't actually run, I don't run Faith Power because I don't have any Faith Animo that I'm going to be sending out. That's why I don't run the Holy Spirit. Just because I'm running mainly the Hope and the Love. Now, I do on occasion also throw in prayer because let's say I've gone out and I've searched for my power, because some of them only search for a specific type of power card. And then there are some cards that let you search for just power cards in general. So I'm going to go get a prayer card instead because that's going to work as either one of them. And that way I'm not worried about, oh gosh, I only have 2 love and 3 hope out there. I can't send out my, agape soar ultra because it costs 3 love. Well, if I have my prayer out there, it doesn't matter. And so I actually run 9 power cards. I run 8 power cards because I have my Truth Seeker. And so I run 3, 3, and 2. And that way I know that I'm always going to run into the power that I need because you can swap out power in your power pool. So if I have a card that's only searching for a love power, I'll put that in my power pool until I can draw into a prayer or I can go search for a prayer card and then I'll replace it. And so I actually run 8 and I specifically run them as hope and love and then prayer because it does work for multiple kinds.
Okay, and then another example that we have, since your decks run on, the type of power you run depends on what Animo you run, obviously. So say like I run, in our Simon deck, I run Draylight level 3. Draylight level 3 costs 1 Holy Spirit and 2 Universal. I also run Princess Gem and Mercifire Ultra. Princess Gem costs 2 Universal, and then Mercifire Ultra costs 4 Universal. So, obviously, since we don't run any other kind of Animo, we're going to run Holy Spirit. So I don't need to run Faith, Love, or Hope. But because we do have universal cost, The fasting card comes in handy a lot because it can be either one Holy Spirit or it can be two universal. So instead of paying 3 different power cards for Draylight, I can pay one Holy Spirit and one fasting card. And then those 2 power cards cover the entire cost to activate Draylight. Princess Gem requires 2 universal. So rather than paying 2 power cards, I can pay 1 fasting card to do 2 universal instead. I could also, for Mercifier would normally cost 4 power cards. But with fasting, I can go ahead and use 2 universal from fasting if I have 2 fasting power cards, and that makes it so that he only costs 2 power cards. So, but we only run, I believe, a total of 7 power cards in this deck because we need to see the Holy Spirit. So we run 4 Holy Spirit and we run 3 fasting. Mm-hmm. So the next one is Link, for example. Link in our Hope and Holy Spirit deck, we don't use any special power cards. So how about you go and talk about why we don't use anymore? So we only.
What's the third question again?
Oh, we're still on the second question.
Okay.
Why do we use just standard power cards with our Link deck?
So Link, especially with running Hope cards in the Link deck, we especially want to run into Hope because you're going to be using cards like Profess Hair, Oincome, things that are searching specifically for that particular power card. And so you're going to be searching for those. So you're going to want to run a lot of Hope. But if you're running Holy Spirit, there's not a Holy Spirit card that costs more than 1 Holy Spirit, and then the rest are universal cost. So we only run these 2 particular power cards because fasting wouldn't really do us any good in that deck. And obviously the others aren't going to do any good either. Now you could technically run prayer because it gives you the hope power, but it doesn't give you Holy Spirit. And so it doesn't really make sense to be running prayer unless you were running some other kind of Animo in the deck other than just the Holy Spirit and hope.
Okay. And then our 4th example is my Stagnetic deck. In my Stagnetic deck, I use Sophia as my Truth Seeker. So I already have my love power cards provided. So I don't actually run any standard love. But I do need to see a lot of faith. So I need to have at least a bare minimum of 5 power cards plus 3 to use my Stagnetic's abilities. I need to have 3 faith power cards in my discard pile. So I go ahead and I run 3 prayer cards. I use 2 faith and I run 3 more faith. So that way I have those 3 faith I can put in my discard pile. And so I don't run any love since Sophia covers that. And then my prayer cards can also cover that if I need to. But I also need every single power in my power pool that's available to me to produce faith. Because I use Armorino Ultra in the deck, who requires me to discard 3 specific faith cards. So rather than just having some love power in there that I just can't use, I much rather have prayer. So that's the reason why I run a total of 8 power cards for my Stagnetic deck, just so I can have the bare minimum plus 3 to discard for my Stagnetic effect. And as a result, because I run love and faith, it allows me to run the universal Animo Mercifier. And so that's the reason why I run 8. And so that should give you a good idea of what kinds of power cards that you should run. And we'll go and move on to our 3rd question, which is, what cards search your deck for power cards?
So some of the Truth Seekers search for power cards, such as Link. You have some of the Series 1 cards search for power. These are great because they search for any power card instead of just a particular kind. Okay. So those are pretty great.
And then
you have...
Just put the indwelling out there. Yep, and so Link searches 1 at the beginning of your turn if you don't have a power card. Hairball and Furball, they are freeze, and then you just get to activate them and search your deck for any power card as an action. This one searches your deck for a power card, excluding prayer. So technically, this card can grab fasting. I believe the intent was that it couldn't grab special power cards. And then indwelling, search your deck for up to 2 Holy Spirit power cards and adds them to your hand. And then is the next one?
We also have Silas.
Yes.
As another Truth Seeker that can grab, but he grabs from your discard pile.
Right. So you have to already have a power card in your discard pile. So he's very useful for that. And then is the next one Null? Mm-hmm. Well, hold on. We'll go ahead and so just this section right here. These are all cards that actually search your deck for power cards or grabs a power card directly from your discard pile. So this provides you the power card that you need to play from your hand for that turn.
Right. So like in my Hope and Love deck, I wouldn't run Indwelling, obviously. You know, so you want to be particular on your kind. That's why I do run Hairball and Testify, though, because they search for power cards that it doesn't specify.
Okay. The next set of cards that we're going to show you are just cards that search for just any card in your deck. All right. So we have Noel and Grundy from set 1. Their action is that when you activate them, you get to search your deck for any one card add to your deck. So technically this could be any card, but it could be a power card if you need that. And then for set 2, we have Draylight. When you actually grow him from your hand on top of a Draylight level 2, you get to search your deck for any card and add to your hand. So that card could be a power card that you can place in your power pool that turn. Provokupine, when Provokupine gets defeated, you can search your deck for any one card and add it to your hand. And Snakebit searches your deck for any 4 cards, adds them to your hand, but you skipped your score phase. Sometimes it's actually kind of valuable to search out for like 3 Faith and 1 Stagnetic, just so you can just discard all 3 Faith, put them in your discard pile, and just send out your Stagnetic for free. But usually with Snakebit, we'll grab like the 1 power card that we need for the turn, plus the rest of the combo that we need to play. So those are the cards that just search for any 1 card. And so those, all in total, all those cards, they're the cards that you can use to get power cards to your hand. So for our final question, we are going to ask, is there any way I can get more than 1 power card into my power pool in the same turn? So we are going to have these organized, by type, just so you can get a good look.
That's fine.
Okay. Just so you can get a good look at all the different types of cards that you could run in your deck based on type to help, accelerate. We call adding additional power cards to your power pool accelerating your power pool. So one good example of this is Armorino. Armorino level 1 has an ability that says once per turn, as long as this card's in your small group, you may place 1 Faith power card from your discard pile into your power pool. So you can go ahead and if you have a Faith power card in your power pool or a Faith power card in your discard pile, say you have 1 in your hand, you can play 1 Faith from your hand into your power pool. Then if Armorino's in your small group, activate his ability to place 1 from your discard pile into your small group as well. Into your power pool. This will enable you to have 2 power cards in your power pool in the same turn. Lumini has Offering. Offering's an ability that says you may discard this card at any time. If you do, search your deck for a Faith power card and add it to your power pool. So this one just actually searches, plus it accelerates. So you can go ahead and place a power card from your hand into your power pool and then use his ability to search your deck for a power card and place it directly in your power pool, also in the same turn. I'll let you cover Oincum and Opalus.
So Oincum is pretty great because it allows you to search and add power during your score phase. So you can already have your small group set up in such a way that, let's say, I only have Link and another Hope out there. I can go ahead and send out Oincome, but I can have other cards in my small group that cost hope. I can go add those 2 power cards there, and those obviously are unused. So I can go back and I can go use that power still in that same score phase. So that's actually a little bit different than being just in your regular turn, because it doesn't count towards your turn power. Opalus, on the other hand, is similar to Lumini. It's just the love version. So you send her out into your small group, and then you can use her offering to go search for a love power, and then discard her, add that to your power pool, and then use that for your score phase. Mm-hmm. And then Nebe, on the other hand, Nebe is a little bit more interesting because Nebe has an action. So again, this is going to search your deck for a standard power card, and it's going to add it directly to your power pool during your score phase. But it also does it for one of your opponents that you choose. So obviously, if you're playing a 2-player game, it would be your other opponent, or if you're playing more than that, you get to choose who that would be. Manti is the same way as it searches during your score phase, but Manti only helps you, whereas Nebe helps someone else as well.
And Manti can be used to grab prayer or fasting as well.
That is true.
Now, the thing that you should also note is that Oincome and Manti are level 2s, which is why their actions are far greater than, say, like Nebe. Because Nebe helps out your opponent and is only limited to standard power cards. This one is limited to only hope, but you get 2 of them. And this one can go ahead and search your deck and add fasting to your power pool, which is really beneficial.
That is true.
Yes. And so those are all the Animo that accelerate that I would actually recommend running. The next set of cards are cards that you can run, but I don't necessarily recommend them. So I call these the top lookers. Carolyn calls these the top searchers. And we got Raspberry, our Animo for the month of December in 2020. We have the Shoes of the Gospel from both set 1 and set 2. I have Copper Coins. And then we'll hold off on those. So these right here are cards that basically they look at the top cards of the deck. Raspberry has an action that says reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and you may place any power cards you find there directly into your power pool, and then you shuffle the rest back into your deck. So if you activate him and you see like 3 fasting cards, you put all 3 fasting cards into your power pool. So he's actually really good because it's all of them. Shoes of the Gospel for both set 1 and set 2, they do the exact same thing. Once per turn, as long as this card is attached to one of your Animo in your small group, you may look at the top card of your deck. If that card is a power card, you may place it directly into your power pool, otherwise put it back on top. So basically, once per turn, as long as the Animo's in your small group, look top card. That top card is a power card, you put into your power pool. If not, you just put it back on top. It's really simple, but the problem that I have with the shoes is that they don't last long enough. Basically, because you're activating your Animo every single turn, chances are you're going to have to activate your Animo with the shoes on them, and you're only going to look at the top card. Okay, well, that was kind of a waste if it wasn't a power card. And then we have Copper Coins, which says look at the top 4 cards of the deck, and if one of those is a power card, place it directly into your power pool. This does not count towards playing a power card into from your hand. Then you shuffle your deck afterwards. But this one is like a better version of the Shoes of the Gospel, which I would recommend this one over this one. And just because it looks at the top 4 and does the same thing.
But it's a story card in that you can only play it once per turn.
Right.
And typically you're not going to have more than one of those story cards in your hand.
Right. Now, I don't really see a whole lot of really strong use for these for any good plays. Because it's either a hit or miss. It doesn't guarantee you the power card. Raspberry is worth running just because Raspberry is an 8 for 3, which is fair value in this game. And it looks at the top 3 and puts all of them into your power pool if any of them are power cards.
Which you could use that in conjunction with something like the Belt of Truth.
Yes, the Belt of Truth or Lamb Up.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways that you can actually accelerate this, but those cards only increase your odds. They don't guarantee it.
Right.
So until we say like get an Animo in our small group that say like put this card into your discard pile and search your deck for a power card and place on top of your deck, then I couldn't really see these cards having a whole lot of guaranteed use. Raspberry's still worth it because if you do hit it, it can be really strong, especially if you hit like more than one.
And it's an Animo in general, whereas these aren't giving you points.
Exactly. All right. And I'll let Carolyn take care of this entire section.
So first we have the Slumber Tumbler, which I actually do enjoy using, but it is kind of rare that I use it because for the most part, I'm going to want to use all of my power in a turn with the Animo that I have in my small group. But if there is an opportunity where let's say, I only have 2 Animo in my small group, I haven't drawn into any more, and one of those Animo allows me to go search for, let's say, another virtuous Animo of some kind. I can go ahead and place the Slumber Tumbler on one of my power cards, and I can then set it up for my next turn. So one of those situations that I used this, I had the Series 1, I believe it was Furball, out there, and it allows you to search for any virtuous Animo, but it doesn't exclude any ultras or anything like that. So I had played that one and another one. I had a fasting out there, and so
this one only works with standard power cards.
I know.
Okay.
I had a fasting out there, and I had a Holy Spirit out there. And so I'd sent out my Furball, I'd done some other stuff, and I had put my Slumber Tumbler on my Holy Spirit card, and I then the next turn, using my Furball to go search for Mercifier Ultra, I had then brought that one in, and so my next turn, I was able to use my fasting and my Holy Spirit and cover the complete cost for Mercifier Ultra. The 2 equipment here, the Staff of Moses and David's Sling, are pretty great from Series 1 because they actually reduce the power cost for an Animo. And so I actually really enjoy running the Staff of Moses in my Fellowship deck because I can put this on Oincome level 2. And so instead of paying 2 to go grab 2 more hope, I'm only paying 1 hope power card to put that out there to go search for more. So this is also pretty great if it's early game and the only one that I have out there is, let's say, Sadie or Link. I can put this on a card that costs 2 and now I'm only paying 1. Similar with the Faith Power, because it's the exact same thing, it's just with Faith instead. Now the Breastplate of Righteousness from Series 2 is pretty great, especially in a deck similar to the Faith and Hope, the Love and Hope deck, because let's say I don't run into my love power like I need to. This one is going to allow me to make things a little bit easier on myself. So let's say I have 1 of my love and 1 hope out there, and I need 2 of a particular kind. So this one allows every hope cost associated with it to become universal. So that's going to help me in that regard. So let's say I have my Conquer Sore level 2 out there. Now I can pay both of these and play my Conquer Sore. Or let's say I have my Agape Sore level 2 out there. I can throw this one on that, and now those become hope if I had 2 hope instead of 2 love out there. So that one's pretty great. Personally, I actually prefer the Series 1 Breastplate of Righteousness just because it does make everything universal instead. And so that's going to allow me to play more things instead of having to be sure which type of Animo I'm putting it on.
All right. So, and these right here, rather than like accelerating your power pool, they're more like kind of like reducing the cost or doubling up one of your powers. So this one kind of accelerates, but it's not like a permanent acceleration. And these all like reduce, and these convert. So they like manipulate your cost so that way you're either paying less or you don't have to pay what the card says you're supposed to pay. So quite frankly, like these are all great options as well. All right. And with that, you guys should know the basics of power cards when building your deck. By now, you should know how many power cards you should have in your deck, what kind of power cards you should have in your deck, what cards you should have in your deck that search for power cards, and what cards you can have that help accelerate your power pool. And so that's all for our deck building tutorial for now. Until next time, Truth Seekers, keep learning truth, living virtuously, and defeating sin.